Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Special Focus Recovery from Relapse Overeaters Anonymous meeting. Today is Tuesday, the 28th of March, 2023, and we are delighted to welcome Melissa S., who has come to share with us today. Melissa came to our way in 2017, and while originally from Tampa, Florida, she has lived in Louisville, Kentucky since 2004. Melissa, thank you so much for coming to share with us today, and I happily hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Lee, and everybody's doing the service today. And even just being here, because if you guys weren't here, I wouldn't have anything to go to. So I'm so thankful that you guys are here showing up for my recovery today. I'd like to start with a set-aside prayer. It's been suggested to me that before I do any kind of step work to start with that, and also to start my day with that. So I'm going to begin there. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about these steps, my recovery, my disease, and myself for a new and fresh experience with all these things. Help me to see the truth. So given that this is the special focus is recovery from relapse, I'm going to start there where I think my relapse started. I came in 2017, had some pretty solid recovery, and there was a day that we were on vacation as a family and my son almost drowned. And I immediately, like once everything was fine and he was fine, I immediately just was, oh, thank you, God, for saving him, for protecting him, and had all of the normal emotions that in abstinence are just very easy to feel. And was able to get through those. The very next day, I found out a friend of mine who, completely unrelated, and we were in different states even, her son actually did die that same day that my son almost died. And so I just went spinning, like, well, if I was saying thank you to God, then wouldn't God be to blame for not saving her son? And it was this very slow process of me slowly taking things back from God. So that was the first thing. I was like, oh, well, I guess I can't trust God with my kids. So, and I'm using God, higher power, I use those interchangeably. I'm sorry if that's triggering for anybody. So I just slowly started taking things back from God and not practicing that surrender, not practicing step 3, where surrendering my will and my life over to the care of God. And so I believe that that's where relapse really started for me, that it was spiritual. I've heard, I think in this meeting before, actually, that when we get abstinent, it starts first with the food, then emotions, then spiritually, and that relapse is reversed. That usually it's spiritually first, then emotionally, then with the food. And so that was my experience, absolutely. And it was slow, and eventually the food did follow, and those old beliefs that are easy to fall back into, like, well, I've done this well so far. I'm sure that food isn't really an issue. Now I've learned how to moderate. I can do this now, and definitely stopped using a power greater than or outside of myself, like it says, I believe, in the We Agnostics chapter in the big book. I'm not positive it's in there, but where it says we needed a power outside of ourselves, we need to use that power. And I stopped doing that. I just, my world got smaller and smaller and smaller, just like it did before I ever came into program. And so it was interesting though, because I kept believing those. And towards the end of my relapse, I was talking to my sponsor. I never left program. My attendance and my service dwindled significantly. And I was talking to my sponsor once I was trying to get this abstinence back. I still wasn't identifying myself as being in relapse. So I was talking to her and saying, I don't understand. I'm able to get to like the end of the day, or it used to be fine for me to have treats for the kids here, and I wouldn't touch them, and now it's like I can't not go and get them. And my sponsor one day just said to me, well, you're in relapse. Of course you can't. And I was like, I'm in relapse. And she only knew that because of what I had told her. I mean, that's all that my sponsor can do is reflect back to me what I share with her. And it's just so telling of how sneaky my rationalization is and my delusion is as an addict, of that I can't even hear what I'm saying. That I'm saying to my sponsor, I can't make it to the end of the day, and I couldn't even say I'm in relapse. So once she pointed that out to me, it was like, oh, okay, I can't lie about this anymore. Um, and so that was towards the end of 20 sorry, I have to figure out the years here. 2021. It was fall of that time. And so I had many false starts of getting my abstinence back. And I would start, make it sometimes to breakfast, sometimes the afternoon. Just a few times I made it to 2 or 3 days. Mostly I could never make it to dinner during those last few months of 2021. And so it got to the point on New Year's Eve that year. I was driving to a friend's house, and I was in the car with all my family. They were all listening to music and dancing and having fun. And I had earbuds in, and I was sitting in the front seat, leaning up against the door. I was listening to an audiobook or something, and just was trying to protect myself, because life is too intense. It's too intense for me. So that's why I've needed the food all these years. I've needed this buffer. It's too everything, even the good emotions. Like when I got 4 kids, when they all come up and hug me at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too much. Life is just too much. So I needed this buffer. And I was doing that. And it's so I just had this moment of clarity, sitting in the front seat, driving to in the passenger seat, driving to a friend's house for New Year's Eve, and realized if I keep going on this path, like I'm using food to help me be present with the kids, because life is too much for me. But it's turned into this huge barrier between me and life, between me and my kids. I like what I do for a living. I like my job. I like my family. I like my friends. And yet the food had got to the point where it was preventing me from being able to be present for any of them. Definitely for myself. And I just saw, if I keep going down this path, I'm not going to be here for them, which is the whole reason why I'm using the food to begin with. So fortunately, that day, somebody posted on one of the WhatsApp chats that I was a part of, a step study. And I was able to join a step study with 2 amazing people from England. One of them had long-term abstinence. One of them was brand new to program. And then I was there in relapse. So it was great. We had a little bit of everything there. And I started from scratch. I took the suggestion from the step study that we were using at that time of make a new food plan, instead of just relying on the one that I had when I first came to program that worked well for me. Interestingly, that is the food plan that it's very close to the food plan I'm on now, but I didn't start there when I came into relapse. And so this suggestion was to have the concept of red, yellow, and green foods. So anything I knew that once I started, I couldn't stop. Or once I stopped, I couldn't stay stopped. I would go ahead and put on the red food list. And this was actual, like I just made a list of everything I actually eat, not dairy. I would put the actual food items on there, anything that I ate regularly. And even if it was like a casserole, I would just put the name of that on there. And then I went through each one of those food items and like, can I stop once I start? And once I stop, can I stay stopped? And so anything that was very clearly yes, went I cannot stop, went to the red food list. Anything that was very clearly this food isn't a problem for me, went in the green list. Everything else by default went to the yellow list. And this is what was different that I hadn't heard before, that I found so helpful, was there actually is no yellow list. So the yellow list, I got to go in and see what ingredients that are in this food are also in these foods that I know are on my red list, and that can let me know. So just for an example, if I had spaghetti and pizza on there, and spaghetti was in the red food list, and chicken Alfredo was in the green food list, but pizza was in the yellow, I could look and see, oh, well, it's this marinara sauce, like it's that red sauce that is the common denominator. It's not actually the pasta. For me personally, pasta is on there, but this is just for an example. So I was looking for what's the similarities between the food that I'm eating, and that helped me get clarity on the larger food groups to avoid. And so,
Melissa.
thank you so much. So if I wasn't sure, then I just abstained from it for the duration of that step study. And so when I first came into program, after that relapse, I wasn't sure about a lot of things. My mind had gotten very cloudy about everything, not just the food stuff. So I had very few things on my green list for the duration of me doing that step study, which was also a suggestion from that. And that was the biggest difference from when I first was in program to coming out of this relapse, was taking suggestions. Where when I first came in, I came in with a lot of knowledge, particularly religious knowledge, and I would not follow anything, or even the steps, the wording. I would have to get really specific on like how I would reword it so that it would be okay for me, and I couldn't move forward with a step if I felt like I couldn't like agree with one of the steps or something that was being said. I was very hesitant the whole time, and I would not take a suggestion from most people. Whereas when I came back in, like I said, I never left, but after the relapse, it was the biggest difference is I just started taking suggestions, and it didn't matter who suggested it, and I would just try it. So the OA birthday party that year was virtual. It's the only one I've ever been to. And so I attended it, and I heard a lot of suggestions there that really helped save my life. One of them was listening to Acceptance Was the Answer, which is a story from the back of the big book. There's on YouTube, there's somebody reading it. And so I just listened to that every morning. That was a suggestion that was there for me. And I did that for many months, probably over half the year, and was another thing that I had to do, especially those first 30 days are really hard with the food leaving your system. So what I had to do to just make it to the end of the day is I had my earbuds in all day long. And while I was unless I was actively in a meeting or actively talking to somebody else, I had my earbuds in and I was listening to OA and AA shares on YouTube all day long. And it was so amazing to be listening to all these AA shares and hearing, like, I was laughing at all the same places that the audience that was being recorded was laughing. And it just showed me, I have this alcoholic mind. I just have a different substance, but I think just like these people do. I think, and I feel just like these people feel, and I problem solve just like they do. And I had never thought of myself in that way before. In fact, I had a hard time even identifying as an addict when I first came into program, because I'm like, it's just food. Really downplaying the seriousness of the disease. In fact, I never even wanted to call it a disease. And I felt like, no, I just make bad choices. So just accepting that, like, okay, you guys say it's a disease, I'm going to start calling it a disease, and just taking these suggestions like that. Another thing that was very helpful was service. I didn't feel comfortable stepping back into being a sponsor that soon, because I didn't know how long it would stick. I mean, I had made a few false starts, and then I just didn't want to say, hey, I can sponsor somebody. But I knew that because you guys had told me this, that service is the the way. And in the big book, it says when all else fails, working with another compulsive overeater is the surest way to prevent us from going back. And so I started doing that. If anybody asked for an outreach call, I would immediately say I'm available. And if anybody, I started offering to take people through the doctor's opinion, even though I had only gone through it myself just recently. I had now been through it. And so I thought, yeah, I can do this. And every time I was on the phone with somebody, taking somebody through the doctor's opinion, it helped me go through the doctor's opinion again and help me get more clarity about the fact that I have this twofold. The first part of step one, the powerlessness over food, is twofold for me. I had the physical reaction that when the food's in my system, nothing could get in the way of me eating the food. Like every cell in my body is screaming for this food. And then also I have that mental twist and the built-in forgetter where I will forget what it was like in the food. And so talking to somebody who's still in the food or newly out of the food reminds me of how I am, how my default behaviors are. And then the obsession that comes where even if I don't have, if my body isn't craving it because I haven't had it, my mind is still obsessed with it. And I think about it all the time. The freedom that comes in abstinence is actually, for me, a huge part of that is the relief from that, where I can talk with you and not be thinking about what I am or am not going to eat, and scheming all the ways to make those things happen. So just trying to do service in any way I could. I love that there's so many invitations for service here in this meeting because it doesn't seem logical to me. Like, why would calling somebody help me get through this food craving? Why would doing tech at a meeting help me? It, like, logically, I can't quite figure it out, which I think is why me letting go, having to understand everything, and just taking suggestions was so critical to me getting into recovery. And then it is interesting. I had a sponsee before the relapse who was in some of the other rooms and has experience with alcohol and drugs. And when I told her, hey, I can't sponsor you anymore because I'm in relapse, she asked me, is it drugs or is it food? Because she said I was acting and looking like my mannerisms, everything. She said it was just like when people relapse in her other rooms. And I was really surprised by that because I had minimized my addiction for so long. And to have somebody who has real life, personal and front row seats to people she loves of this happening, and to say that it was the same from that perspective, it was so helpful. I'm so thankful that she said that to me that day. So working the steps, I actually joined a step study, and then about a month later, I joined a local step study with my local in-person groups. And so doing that back to back was very helpful to get me out, because it was like I had just done the step a month before, and so having it wash over again. One thing I know about myself is I'm very good at hiding and elbowing people out of my way. So when we talk about in the rooms about having the herd of people around you, being in the center of the pack, I needed a bigger pack. I needed more people because I'm so good at elbowing people, shoving people, and getting over to the edge. So if I am shoving people out of the way or hiding, it's going to take me a lot longer to break out of that pack. So I started attending a lot more international meetings, joined a lot more WhatsApp groups, which has been huge for me. I honestly, my experience now is that when people do outreach, it is more of a service than me receiving the outreaches. Having people text or use WhatsApp throughout the day, getting those reminders, it really keeps me in the center of recovery. And it doesn't matter what it is, if it's a recovery related meme, if it's a struggle that somebody's having, if it's something's going well, a quote from the big book, all of it has just been so helpful, keeping me in the center of recovery and having recovery wash over my mind throughout the day. Getting phone calls from people sponsoring people. It is one of the biggest ways that I am able to stay in recovery. The other thing was I really changed my step 10 work. The way step 10 I'm doing it now is anytime I have a disturbance or feel something, I will make an outreach call right then. And I just came up with a list of about 10 names where I'll call them. And if they don't answer, I go right to the next name on the list. Now, I didn't tell them I was doing this. I know some people that do this that do. They say, hey, can I put you on this list? And I haven't done that. It's probably a good idea too. I just didn't. But that way I know, like, if I'm struggling, if you don't answer, I'm just going to go, I'm not even going to voicemail sometimes. I'm just going to go to the next name until I'm able to connect with somebody. And being able to get whatever that is coming up for me. Thank you so much. Getting that, whatever's coming up for me, being able to reason that out with a fellow and getting that out. And then the most critical part is turning my attention to someone else that can help, because otherwise that resentment takes root again and it grows. And very often I don't know what's going on for me. I might feel frustrated about something over here, like, oh, the light's in my eyes, and I have this big reaction. But then I'm able to reason out with somebody and realize, oh, I'm actually upset about this other thing over here. This actually happened yesterday. I was talking out an amends that I needed to make with my sponsor, and realized, oh, the issues that are coming up for me here, I thought it was this one thing, but it turns out I actually have a lot of fear about losing this relationship. And so that's been, it's something that I can't really do on my own. I can do for other people what I can't do for myself. I can help, I can look at somebody else's food and way easier than I can my own. I've heard it said in a meeting before that they started calling their disease, the disease thinking, common sense. And I just love that so much, because it feels like common sense. I was like, of course, this is, but when I talk to somebody else, it's like, no, this is the bad idea. So being able to have, use other people, make outreach calls, receive outreach calls has been huge for me. The step 10s, doing it as it comes up throughout the day. Some days that means like 6 to 8 phone calls or more. And some days I might not have to make a phone call, but as I become aware of something. And then step 11 has really changed for me, where I will do the daily readers in the morning. And then at night, I'll do, go through the day and just ask those questions that are outlined in the big book. And for a while, I was just doing that on my own, almost like a meditation at night, which I think is fine. But just recently, somebody asked if I could be their 11th step nightly review partner. And so we started texting these back and forth. And I noticed a big difference. I had a lot more consciousness around what came up for me during that time in the evening, the next morning when I wake up. So it's almost like when I wake up in the morning and do the On Awakening prayer, when it starts out by saying, we look forward for our plans for the day, I can pause and say, okay, God, how would you have me be? And I'll get back various things. But if I'm having some more awareness around what came up for me yesterday, where what I could have done better, that often can carry into the next day. So lately what's been coming up for me is I get back from God, be present. Be present in life, be present to myself, what's coming up for me, be present to my body, what does my body need right now? And so that, I think, invitation came clear for me, because I was able to see, oh, I wasn't present today. I wasn't aware of what I was feeling or how my body was feeling, or when I was talking to somebody, I wasn't present. And so having that view and texting it to somebody just helped bring a lot more awareness the next day with that. And then I can take that into my day and practice that surrender. And also have awareness when it's happening. So, and then step 12, when Felicia read the steps, I don't know if you guys noticed, but step 12, it says, having had a spiritual awakening. And that's something that I kind of overlooked my first time before my relapse. It just was like, yeah, this is part of the thing. But now I love it because it's like, oh, this is what we're doing. If we work these steps, we will have a spiritual awakening. And that's the whole deal. That's why we're here. And it's so helpful to me because at least in the States, there's a lot of restaurants that will have special kids menus and will have like mazes on them. And when I have those mazes, if I start at the end and go backwards, I make a whole lot less wrong turns than if I start at where you're supposed to start. So I kind of take that principle here, like, okay, if I know this is where I'm going, then I can be having that really clear focus of this is where I'm stepping towards as a spiritual awakening, and that minimizes my wrong turns along the way. And food is only mentioned in the first half of the first step. None of the other steps bring food up, and it is so interesting because like this is why I go to all of my feelings, all of these interactions, all of these things I'm taking personally, or ways that I could do it better, or if only you would do what I thought and said. That is the stuff that makes me go to the food, because I couldn't handle that, couldn't handle these emotions. And stopping the food, life gets really loud, really loud. And I feel things. I feel things very well. And I have worked hard my whole life to cultivate this ability to not feel, to have relief from these feelings, good and bad. I love, again, towards the end of the On-Awakening prayer, when it says that it's the danger of excitement, fear, anger. Those emotions aren't the problem, but the danger that come with them are. And that's the steps give me the tools to use so that I can deal with all those stuff, with all those emotions, and being able to practice them and have support from you guys. And I also have a lot of supportive friends that aren't in these rooms, but they know I'm here, and they help me just as much as people in here. And it's amazing that I don't have to do this on my own, and I can continue to foster the spiritual awakening. And I can take my awakened spirit out into the world. And that's where the step work comes in. That's the end of step 12. So one of the things that I really enjoy about my life right now is that I don't have to do anything alone. When I first came into the rooms, I didn't understand that. I was like, okay, but I'm the one that's going to this meeting. I'm the one that has to have this phone call or whatever. You're not actually doing it with me. But now I am experiencing that feeling of, oh, I get to talk to people beforehand and afterhand, and I have this connectivity with everybody. As I go in, I'm able to remember the principles of the program because of that connectivity, and it makes me able to be present. It makes me able to live my life. Now I get the opportunity to have the full human experience. I get to feel happiness and rejection and love, and that wasn't available to me for most of my life, and now I get to, and I don't have to carry things with me that aren't serving me anymore. So if I can ask God, is there a lesson here? What's the invitation here for whatever the thing is? And if it's a lesson that I've already learned, then thank you for the reminder. And if it's a new invitation for me, then I can sit in it for a little bit and see what God has for me. And then just continue to be practicing these principles. And I have the ability to be present with my kids and my friends and myself in ways that I've never been able to do before. During the year of my first year of abstinence, coming out of relapse, my husband told me he wanted a divorce, and our marriage was really struggling the first half of the year. In July, he told me he wanted a divorce, so we were separated, and then our divorce finalized mid-January this year. And so I have been through the hardest things that I've ever been through. Facing things that I didn't realize were happening in my marriage, having to be honest about ways that I've shown up and facilitated some things that have a lot of shame for me right now. And I was, after I signed the divorce finalized, I just sort of looked back and was able to say, I feel more loved now and more connected and carried now than I have my entire life. And yet I just went through what feels like it should be the most thorough rejection I could ever experience. And in a sense it is. And yet I still feel this love, and I've been carried by you guys. I've been able to connect to people who have a similar experience, and they're able to share with me what worked for them. I'm able to learn choices. I always have choices. I mean, I like the choices I have, but I always have them. And I'm able to learn how to make a decision instead of just waiting for somebody to come and make that decision for me. Because then, thank you so much. If it doesn't go the way I think it should, I'm not at blame. I don't have to blame for that. But now I'm learning. Essentially, it feels like I'm learning how to be a human. And so I'm so thankful for all of you here today, and that I can share with you. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys too. So thanks so much.